الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. This is a new lesson. It's a commentary on the introduction to Madhab al-Imam Malik, the Maliki jurisprudence. And I have chosen for you a new introduction which is called Al-Muqaddimah Al-Waghlisiyah. It's not well known, but it's known between the Maliki students and Maliki scholars. This introduction to Maliki jurisprudence is a small, short introduction, but it's very beneficial. And as the Maliki's traditions and writing their books, they always start, or they usually start, by a creed, a summarized creed, and then they study the jurisprudence, the fiqh, and then they end with morals, meanings, and what they call tasawwuf, but actually it's morals and meanings and things that purify your heart and train you to practice Islam properly. I would like to give you an introduction to what is fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, and how did the Islamic jurisprudence grow and spread, and how did it get divided to several schools. That is something that is very important for the beginner to know, so that when you study any fiqh, you know where did that come from. This introduction is going to be very beneficial for all our students that would like to continue and to become, inshallah, in the future, scholars of this ummah. And I would like every one of you to put in his intention to become a real scholar that would continue the way and continue studying until he spreads the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put this always in your mind. Put this always in your mind, as we studied in our first lesson, the 3 pillars, which we said that you have to know, and you have to practice, and you have to spread and preach, and then you have to be patient if anything happens to you when you are spreading the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, to start, we have to know that all our jurisprudence comes from our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So no Muslim has his worships nor the way he practices anything of his religion out of the way of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if he does that, and if he has anything against the teachings and the things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with, it'll not be accepted, because our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, كل من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Anyone who makes anything that is not according to what we do is rejected. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he started his mission, he started teaching the first followers all what is revealed to him. The revelation started by verses of the Holy Quran. And it started in the beginning secretly, 3 years, and then the Prophet ﷺ started preaching loudly to everybody. He had a lot of enemies when he started preaching. Many people rejected his mission. But he continued and he suffered, but he was always patient until he finished his mission in 23 years. His mission was finished in 23 years, where the Holy Quran was completed and all of the worships and the acts and marriages and how to sell, how to buy, how to do everything was shown by the Holy Quran and was shown by the tradition of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the days of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, anybody who wanted anything, he used to go to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from him he takes the source directly. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to set many governors when his authority spread to all Arabia, and those governors were his companions. So they were asked to teach people and to lead them by Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ passed, his companions took his place and they chose his best friend Abu Bakr to lead them according to what they learned from the Prophet ﷺ. So that's why Abu Bakr was called the successor of the Prophet ﷺ. Khalifa to Rasulullah ﷺ. Khalifa means successor. That means he takes the place of the Prophet ﷺ, but he doesn't have any revelation and he doesn't have any inspirement. He practices what he learned from the Prophet ﷺ. So he used to ask if he doesn't know, and he used to gather the great companions that learned from the Prophet ﷺ so that he can take from them the opinions that he doesn't know and rule people by that. Abu Bakr did remain alive, but the main thing that he did is that he compiled the Holy Quran, which was spread in the hands of people, written pages here and there, so he compiled it in one book. And the second important thing that he did, that there were people who rebelled against the states because Arabs used to live as tribes. So when the Prophet ﷺ came, he made them live as a civilized nation that has one leader with one constitution and one law that rules everybody. So they rebelled against that. But Abu Bakr forced them to, he stopped their rebel and he made them come back to the states. Or he forced them to follow one leader and one law and one state. And then he continued conquering lands. So he conquered Iraq, and then he started conquering Syria, but he passed. So Umar continued. Umar was a very important person in the Islamic history because he ruled about 10 years, where Abu Bakr ruled about 2 years. So he's the one who made a lot of important things implemented. So he implemented a lot of laws, and he used to have his own opinions that are derived from the Prophet ﷺ, and he used to gather the companions of the Prophet ﷺ when he gets confused or he doesn't have knowledge in something. And he didn't used to let the main companions of the Prophet ﷺ go out of Medina because he always needs them. But he sent some of the companions to some places to teach the new Muslims, like Ibn Mas'ud was sent to Kufa, to Iraq, Kufa, to teach them, and some others were sent to Yemen or other places. Abu Ubaid al-Jarrah and others were in Syria, and that's Umar later on conquered a lot of places like Egypt, like he started conquering North Africa. When Uthman radiallahu anhu came, so Umar faced a lot of problems, so he solved a lot of these problems according to his background, because he was the second important person in the Prophet ﷺ state. So he continued and he implemented laws and he built the states, and he made the constitution, a lot of things. I mean, a lot of things were, and the law was improved in his days. Uthman's policy was different. He let everybody go wherever he wanted. So knowledge spread everywhere. And lots of companions of the Prophet ﷺ went to Kufa, to Basra, to Damascus, to Egypt, to North Africa, Yemen, etc. So every one of them faced problems here and there, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ started spreading their knowledge. After the era of Uthman, Ali came and he settled in Iraq, in Kufa. So he spread his knowledge in Kufa as well. And later on, things changed a lot. The Islamic State changed, a lot of things changed. So everybody started spreading his knowledge. There were conflicts, and we had two main schools. We had later on the school of Iraq and the school of Hijaz. The school of Hijaz, the capital of it was Medina. The school of Iraq, the capital of it was Al-Kufa. The school of Iraq was the conclusion of the teachings of Ibn Mas'ud and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, where the school of Medina and Hijaz was the conclusion of the teachings of Umar and Uthman and Aisha and Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, who settled in Mecca, and he had a lot of students there, and he was between Mecca and Taif, and he had students in Yemen like Tawus and others. So this school started improving, and we had lots of members that used to follow the Kufi school or the Iraqi school and the Hijazi school. The Iraqi school, because of a lot of new Muslims, and these new Muslims were originally either Magians, the Persians, were Magians, or Christians or whatever. And they had a lot of sects and groups that didn't convert Islam properly. And some of them used to lie on the Prophet ﷺ, so they had to be very strict in using the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ because they had to differentiate between what is authentic, what is not authentic. So they used to depend on rational previous laws in their mind that are balanced or built on the Quran and the authentic Sunnah. So they were called the people of opinion because they used to use their opinion a lot rather than using the text. But their opinion was built on the text. But when they go to a lot of branches of jurisprudence, they used to use their mind like they used to use their rational mind, their opinions in making new branches of fiqh. And this school, later on, the great Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah inherited this school and he became the leader of this school. Although there were before him a lot of scholars like Sufyan Thawri, like others, and before him was Hamad bin Abi Sulaiman, Ibrahim Nakhai before that, and others. And then we reached to the students of Ibn Mas'ud and Ali ibn Abi Talib. But this was the school. And there was another school that was very similar to this school. They used to call it the school of the family of the Prophet Ahlul Bayts, who were in Kufa and who were descendants of Ali ibn Abi Talib, which later on became the Zaydi school. It's very similar to the Hanafi school. The other school improved and took from the students of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. The second school is the school that we are going to focus on. And they called it later on the school of Hadith because it focused on Hadith, and because Medina was the capital of Islam and they had a lot of Hadith texts, narrations. So they focused on that and they built all the branches on that. And we had this school that ended to great scholars like Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab, and like Kharijat ibn Zayd ibn Thabit, and like Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Utbah ibn Mas'ud, and Urwa ibn Zubair ibn Awam, and others. And then it went to, and we had Ali ibn Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib and his son Muhammad ibn Ali, known as Al-Baqir, and his son Ja'far al-Sadiq, who was one of the greatest leaders of the Prophet ﷺ's family, and his cousin Abdullah ibn Hassan ibn Abi Talib. These were the two teachers of Imam Malik rahimahullah. And we had a great scholar called Rabi' ibn Abi Abdurrahman. He's originally Persian, and he was the professor of Imam Malik rahimahullah, and Imam Malik was influenced a lot by this scholar. So Imam Malik took from all of these scholars and he inherited their school and he became the leader of that school. Imam Malik rahimahullah was very strict, and he used to take care of the Madani school, the Madini school. And he used to consider what he found his professors doing as the Sunnah, because he says that these guys took from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and took directly from the Prophet ﷺ, so they inherited the authentic Sunnah. So when they agree about something, he used to consider that as a Sunnah. And that's why if he finds something that all of them agreed about, he used to reject the hadith, because he says that this is 10 by 10 or 20 by 20 by 20 to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Sunnah is 1 by 1 by 1 to the Prophet ﷺ. Am I going to leave this that is more authentic and more clear, and the heart feels that it's authentic, and take this one narration that might have a mistake, might not be authentic, might not be proper? So this is his opinion. His students, Shafi'i rahimahullah, who grew in the rural area between that was close to Mecca, and he took from the students of Abdullah ibn Abbas in Mecca, like Muslim ibn Khalid al-Zinji and others, and like Ibn Jurayj, Ibn Ata ibn Abi Rabah and others. So he benefits from the Meccan school, and then he went to Medina and he benefited from Imam Malik rahimahullah. He narrated Muwatta and he took a lot of knowledge from him. And then he went to Iraq and he took from Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, who was the student of Abi Hanifa rahimahullah, and who narrated Muwatta as well from Imam Malik. But Muhammad ibn Hassan actually was the main student that spread the Hanafi school. So here he decided to defend the Sunnah that the people of Iraq, who were called the people of opinion, didn't use it properly. So he wrote the first book that was written in the Usul al-Fiqh. So he wrote, and that was by a suggestion of Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, who was the student of Imam Malik in al-Basra. So when he wrote that book, a lot of people started following his theory and his doctrine, and they started calling this school the school of Hadith, because the school of Medina was referred to Medina. The school of Kufa was referred to Kufa, and it inherited all the Kufi teachings, and the Medini school inherited all the Hijazi and the Medini teachings. But the school of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said we aren't referred to any city. We refer only to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and we follow the hadith wherever it comes from. And Imam Shafi'i benefited a lot from his travels from here to there, and he took from everybody. And later on, he settled in Egypt. He was considered as one of the Imam Malik students, but later on, he made his own school, and he wrote books that he discussed with the two schools, the Kufi school and the Medini school. That's not our topic now. We want to focus on the Medini school now. The Medini school was led by Imam Malik rahimahullah. When Imam Malik passed in the year 179, he left a lot of students spread everywhere. So he left a bunch of them in Medina, which is his origin land, and he had students in Iraq, and he had students in Egypt, and in North Africa and Andalusia. Don't forget that the last one who narrated the Muwatta from Imam Malik was Yahya ibn Yahya ibn Waslas or Waslasan al-Laythi, who was a Berber student, and he was originally from Cordoba. So he went back and he spread the knowledge of Imam Malik in Andalusia. And the main student that was always with Imam Malik, about 20 years, he didn't mix him with anybody else, was Abdurrahman ibn al-Qasim al-Utaqi, who was an Egyptian scholar. And when Imam Malik passed, he went back to Egypt and he spread his knowledge in Egypt. And there were lots of students in Medina and in Iraq, like Al-Qa'nabi and others in Iraq. And later on, the Iraqi school grew, and the Medini school grew, and the Egyptian school became a very important school, and the North African and the Andalusian school. All these schools had their own attributes. Although all of them go back and refer to Imam Malik, but in those days people didn't used to imitate. They used to understand, and they used to improve what they understood. So later on, the Iraqi school went using the same rational opinions in defending their opinions. And their scholars like Ismail ibn Ishaq and like Al-Qadi Abu al-Hasan al-Qassar, Al-Qadi Abdul Wahhab, Ibn Nasr al-Baghdadi, Al-Qadi means judge, and Abu Bakr al-Abhari and others improved the school. And when Baghdad later on in the Abbasid dynasty was found, it gave us a lot of great Maliki scholars like Al-Qadi Abdul Wahhab and Abu Bakr al-Abhari and others. And most of the important books in Usul al-Fiqh were, the Maliki Usul al-Fiqh, were written by the Iraqis. So the Iraqi school had its own attributes. The Hijazi Medini school was the most conservative school that used to depend on the Hadith and Sunnah, and they were very strict in that. And the main leaders of this Medini school are Abdul Malik ibn Majishon and Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri. Abdul Malik ibn Majishon, Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri, Ma'an ibn Isa al-Qazzaz, Ismail ibn Abi Uwais, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Uwais, and lots of others. All of these were in Medina, and when Imam Malik passed, they continued his way. But Medina later on was the Abbasids meant to not take care of it because they rebelled against them. So they left them until later on knowledge started shrinking in Medina. After 2 ages, knowledge started shrinking in Medina until the Abbasid Empire became weak and the Shia took place in Egypt and in Hijaz. So Sunnah, all the Sunnah were so weak after that. So the Medini school shrank in its original place. But it grew and it fertilized in other places. Imam Malik had some students in Syria as well, the land of Levant, Bilad al-Sham, like Marwan ibn Muhammad al-Tatari, like students of Al-Awza'i, and Awza'i's school was similar to the school of Imam Malik rahimahullah. It was a school, it was the Syrian school. Imam Awza'i was from Lebanon, from Beirut, and he was equal to Imam Malik, and he was a great Imam. But because his school was similar to the Maliki school or close to it, maybe they merged with each other. Although the Andalusians in the beginning used to follow the Awza'i school because they're Syrian originally. The Andalusians leaders, which were the Umayyads, they were originally from Damascus, you know. But the Egyptian school had a very great Imam, which was a friend of Imam Malik, who was Al-Layth ibn Sa'd. But Al-Layth ibn Sa'd, rahimahullah, and many of his opinions and the way of thinking was similar to the Imam Malik. So a lot of students of Imam Malik were the students of Layth, so the two schools merged with each other. We had Ibn al-Qasim, we had Abdullah ibn Wahb, and we had Ashhab ibn Abdul Aziz al-Qaisi. We had, these were students of Imam. We had Ibn Abdul Hakam and others. And then the North African school, which was originally in Qayrawan in Tunisia nowadays, it was it had a lot of students, direct students to Imam Malik, like Ali ibn Ziyad al-Tunisi, who took from Imam Malik directly, and like others, Al-Bahlul ibn Rashid and others, yes. And the Andalusian school, as I told you, was by Abdurrahman ibn Ziyad Shabatun, and later by Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. These were two students of Imam Malik directly, direct students. The main book of Imam Malik that he used to teach and study is Al-Muwatta. Al-Muwatta. It's the book that he wrote, and it contained the knowledge of Medina. The knowledge of Medina. So when you read it, you would find all the names of the scholars of Medina. And he meant to compile the knowledge of Medina in this book. And it contains 500 narrations to the Prophet ﷺ, but 1,500 other narrations are to the companions and other narrations by scholars. And there are some chapters in Al-Muwatta that are only opinion of Imam Malik. He speaks, you have to do so, don't do so, etc. Muwatta had a lot of narrations because the students of Imam Malik started narrating it, and narrations differed. The narrations differed in two things: in the number of narrations and the classification in the book. Sometimes this is before this, sometimes this is before this. The official book is, or the official narration is the narration of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. But there are others like the narration of Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri, which adds 100 hadith more than the narration of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. We have other narrations that are published nowadays, and every time we hear about a new edition that is published. But Imam Malik used to have a lot of opinions or a lot of answers to questions that were they call them masail. So there was a student of Imam Malik who took from Imam Malik and took from the Iraqi school. His name was Asad ibn al-Furat. Asad ibn al-Furat took from Imam Malik and then went to Iraq and took from the students of Abu Hanifa, like what Imam Shafi'i did. And then he settled in Tunisia, North Africa. They used to call the land of Tunisia nowadays and Tripoli. That land was called Ifriqiya, Africa. The main city there was Al-Qayrawan. So Asad ibn al-Furat settled there and started teaching people in the school, in the mosque there. So he used to teach the Kufi or the Iraqi jurisprudence that he took from the students of Abu Hanifa and the Medini school. Most of the people used to love the Medini more than the Iraqi, because the new generation of North Africa used to see Imam Malik rahimahullah used to see him as a model. He was very strict, and he used to say the truth, and he didn't used to fear anybody in the sake of Allah, and all these. So they used to go to Hajj and come back. Most of them didn't used to go to Iraq, so they used to settle in Hijaz, Hajj, and then visit the Prophet ﷺ's masjid, mosque, and come back to their lands. So they didn't have to go to anywhere. The great scholar there is Imam Malik. And there is a narration in Sunan al-Tirmidhi that the Prophet ﷺ says that there's a day going to be that people will travel long journeys by camels and they won't find more knowledgeable than the scholar of Medina. So most of the scholars said that this scholar of Medina is Imam Malik. He's the only one that everybody traveled to him and took from him knowledge more than anybody else. So there was a student in Tunisia called Suhnun ibn Sa'id. His father was originally from Syria, but he settled in Tunisia. So Suhnun, his name actually is Abd Salam, but they call him Suhnun. It's a nickname. Suhnun wanted to go to Imam Malik, but he was poor. He couldn't. And that's why he said, God curse poverty. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't see Imam Malik rahimahullah. And if I had money, I could have seen him. So he took knowledge from the students of Imam Malik. And Asad ibn Furat traveled to to Egypt, and he met Ibn al-Qasim, and he told him, I'm going to ask you all the questions of the Iraqis, and you tell me what Malik says about that. Said, okay. He started giving him, until he compiled a book in all the branches of fiqh. And he said to him, and he called the book, or it became called Al-Asadiyah, referred to Asad ibn Furat. So when he came back to Tunisia, he started teaching in Asadiyah. So Suhnun took a copy of it. Suhnun took a copy of Al-Asadiyah. And he traveled to Egypt, and he met Ibn Wahb and met Ibn al-Qasim. So when he used to go to Ibn Wahb, he used to tell him, where did you come from? He says, I came from Ibn al-Qasim. He says, oh, fear Allah. Most of those opinions don't have any proof from the authentic narrations. And when he used to go to Ibn al-Qasim, he used to tell, where did you come from? He said, from Ibn Wahb. He says, fear Allah. Most of those narrations are not implemented by great scholars. So you have to know what to do about that. This is to tell you or to show you the way of thinking of these two scholars. And it's the same way of thinking until nowadays in the Islamic jurisprudence. Suhnun rahimahullah asked Ibn al-Qasim about all those questions again. So he changed a lot of his opinions, and he, instead of saying, well, I thought, no, he started saying, yes, this is what I heard from Malik. And he started telling him branch by branch. And if he doesn't have any answer about that branch, he says, well, according to what I understand from Imam Malik's way of thinking, he would have said so and so and so. The same thing, he went to Ibn Wahb and he narrated from him a lot of narrations, especially that Ibn Wahb has his own Muwatta. He has his own Muwatta. Although he narrated from Imam Malik, but he has his own Muwatta. And he took from others and he classified the book again. Starts by asking Ibn al-Qasim and then asking Ibn Wahb and then sometimes asking or narrating from Ali ibn Ziyad al-Tunisi. And in the end, he gives his narrations by his chain until the Prophet ﷺ or other scholars that had the same opinion. Until he compiled a big book called Al-Mudawwana. When he went back to Tunisia, to North Africa, he said to Asad ibn Furat, you have to change several things from your book, because I went back to Ibn al-Qasim and he told me to change that. He said, no, I won't change that. And he didn't want to change anything. So the book of Al-Mudawwana spread and got glorified, where the book of Asad ibn Furat got lost. People forgot about it. So Al-Mudawwana became the second book after Al-Muwatta, and inside it we have about 4,000 narrations of the Prophet ﷺ and thousands of branches and asks and answers, AQs that have answers. It's a big book. And it became the main book of the Malikis. We have other books of the Maliki school that are the original books. We have the book of Muhammad ibn al-Muwaz from Alexandria, which was one of the students of Imam Malik. It's called al-Muwaziyah. So we have al-Mudawwana, al-Muwaziyah, and al-Majmu'a ibn Abdus. Ibn Abdus has a book called al-Majmu'a. And we have al-Utbiyah, al-Mustakhraja al-Utbiyah, which was written by al-Utbi, the Andalusian scholar. And we have al-Wadiha, that was written by Abdul Malik ibn Habib, who went to Medina and took from Abdul Malik ibn Majishon, and went and came back to Cordoba and was a great scholar there in Andalusia. Abdul Malik ibn Habib. So these are the 5 main Maliki books. There are others that they call them Masail, and these 5 books were I won't say compiled, but the main narrations of them were gathered in a big book written by Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, which was called Al-Nawadir wa-Ziyadats. So although many of these Nawadir wa-Ziyadats are all the narrations that are not in Al-Mudawwana, so they are in the other original books, and they were compiled by Al-Imam Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, which conserved these narrations and rescued them from being lost. Scholars kept on. Scholars took care a lot took care of al-Mudawwana. So they found that al-Mudawwana considers a lot of narrations. So we have to take the main idea from it, not only narrations. So there were two scholars who summarized it, but the second one, his summary was well spread amongst the Malikis everywhere. That is, okay, we have other books which were in Iraq, like Al-Mabsuta lil Qadi Ismail. But it got lost, although it's very important. We have old scholars keep on referring to it and deriving from it some narrations, but it got lost. So sorry to say that. So the Andalusian, or the Westerns took care of the Western Muslims in North Africa. Andalusia took care a lot of Imam Malik's narrations. So they took care of these narrations, and this book of Al-Mudawwana was summarized by Abu Sa'id al-Baradiri. Al-Baradiri, which wrote his... and even Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani has his book called Ikhtisar al-Mudawwana. But his book didn't spread like the book of his students, Al-Baradiri. Al-Baradiri, subhanAllah, is the student of Al-Imam Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. And subhanAllah, the commentary or the summary of Ibn Abi Zayd, when you read it, it's better than the summary of Al-Baradiri. But subhanAllah, and Ibn Abi Zayd is better than Al-Baradiri. Baradiri actually, he had some bad statements when the Ubaidis, who were called the Ismailites, took place in North Africa until they called them the Fatimids. They took place in North Africa. He went with them and he worked with them. So most of the Malikis condemned his act and hated what he did and rejected that. And even maybe some of them accused him to be against Islam. But even though his book spread and everybody started taking care of it, until we started hearing that when they say Mudawwana, they mean the summary of Al-Baradiri. They call it Tahdhib al-Mudawwana, At-Tahdhib lil-Baradiri, or Tahdhib al-Mudawwana al-Baradiri. People took care of it and memorized it and taught it and all these things until in the 8th century of the Islamic 8th century, we had a scholar, or the 7th century, we had a scholar called Ibn Hajib, who wrote his own commentary. Well, not commentary actually, his own summary, which was called Mukhtasar Ibn Hajib, Al-Jami' Bayn al-Ummahat, or Jami' al-Ummahat. That means he compiled all the narrations but squeezed in one volume. So people forgot about Tahdhib and took care of Jami' Bayn al-Ummahat of Mukhtasar Ibn Hajib. Until Khalil wrote his own summary, which is called Mukhtasar Khalil, in the 8th century. So everybody forgot about all of those commentaries and took care of Khalil. And it kept like that. Everybody later on took care of Khalil. There were other summaries of the Maliki Fiqh, like the summary of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, Risala, and like other books in Iraq and other places. So these are the main. And then later on, after that, they wrote these small booklets like And poems like what Al-Waghlisi wrote, what Al-Akhdari wrote, what Al-Ashmawi, Ibn Ashir, and others, all of these primary poems or not or introductions are very important for the beginners, so that at least they take a main idea about the Islamic jurisprudence. So we chose for you in this introduction, especially that a lot of you are beginners in studying this Maliki jurisprudence. I chose for you this small introduction, which is called Al-Muqaddimah Al-Waghlisiyah, that was written by this scholar, Abdurrahman ibn Ahmad Al-Waghlisi Al-Bijai Al-Jazairi. He was originally from Bijaya, which is a well-known city in North Algeria nowadays. And he is originally from a Berber tribe called Waghlis, Bani Waghlis. He was a very knowledgeable scholar and a mystic person that did you mystic Zahid. I want to use the word Zahid. Zahid, that means he doesn't care about this life. He always thinks about the hereafter. And he was he passed in the year 786, which is 1384 Gregorian. He was a very pious scholar, and he didn't write a lot of books, actually, but he had a lot of students. Amongst the students, some of them were known, like Abu al-Qasim al-Mishdali, or al-Mishiddali, and Abu al-Fadl al-Zawawi, and others who were known in Algeria. And many people took care of this introduction and wrote some commentaries on it. So it is said that from these commentaries we have the main commentary that was written by Sheikh Ahmad Zarruq, rahimahullah. Ahmad Zarruq was a great Maliki scholar in the 9th Hijri century. He was a very strict scholar in following the Sunnah, and he left a lot of, he has a lot of works on a lot of books. So these are so this commentary, it's published, which is this. I think this is the only published commentary of this book. And others, we hear about them, like they say that there is a very interesting commentary that took care of, that went deep in commenting on the book, but actually we didn't find these commentaries. We did find this commentary. And some of them made it as a poem to make it more easy. So they say that there's a scholar called Abdul Karim Zawawi. So he had a very big okay, wait a second. A very big commentary on this book. And he followed the way of Ibn Abi Jamra and Ibn Hajj al-Abdari And these two are very conservative scholars that follow the Sunnah and the old way of Imam Malik. They reject all innovations, like the way that Ahmad Zarruq follows, like the way before him that Imam Shatibi in Andalusia and many scholars in Fez and Andalusia in North Africa used to follow before the innovations entered the Maliki school. So they were very conservative, very strict in following the Sunnah and rejecting the Bid'ah. And we have lots of their answers in Al-Mi'yar al-Mu'rib of the one Sharisi. So, but this book actually, I would like to see it, but it's not published. But the book of Zarruq is published. It's a good book, and he depended on three main books: the book of Ibn al-Hajib and Khalil, and the book of Ibn al-Hajib and the book of Khalil. So, what else? Wait a second. And the book of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. So these three: Ibn Abi Zayd, Ibn al-Hajib, Khalil. He depended on them in commencing on the book. My way, inshallah, is going to be a very summarized way by mentioning every branch that he mentions, and I will try to give the evidence about every branch so that you would study fiqh with its original text, which is the Quran and the Sunnah. This text starts with a small or a brief creed that is derived from the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, which he asked the Prophet ﷺ about Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and the Prophet ﷺ answered. It's very beautiful. And then he speaks about purifying yourself before praying, and then he speaks about prayer and fasting. That's it. In the end, he speaks about morals, meanings, and trainings, and how to purify your hearts. And he took several pages of this commentary, this small summary, an introduction. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you would benefit from it, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would grant me help from Him to comment on this introduction in a way that would please you. آمين إنه على ذلك قدير وإجابة جدير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.